Hello everybody, thank you so much for coming to the tour and talk. My name is Chelsea Luster, I'm the exhibition manager. I also curated the show on the Cracks Deepen with Isaac Scott.
Yay!
So Isaac's going to talk about the work, the show, go through all the pieces. Just a little background about Isaac. He lives in Madison, Wisconsin and working in Philadelphia right now. He's a muralist, he's a photographer, he's a ceramicist, as you all know by now, because you all looked through the show. So I'm going to let Isaac take it from here, tell us about the work, and take us through the galleries. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Chelsea.
No problem.
Hi, everybody. How you guys doing today?
Good.
Thanks for coming out. So basically what I wanted to do today was just like walk you guys through the gallery, take you through like each piece. Things, maybe there's like, a lot of times there's like stories behind some of the pieces in the show that I think, bring out more, like a deeper narrative to each piece. And it's exciting to like get to share with you guys. So I guess I'm gonna start with this one. So this right here was taken on June 8th, 2020. And it was at a protest that was coordinated by public defenders, and it was really interesting because at the time this was like the heat, like the peak of Black Lives Matter movement in 2020, and they held this protest around City Hall. And when I had walked up on them, as I joined the group, they knelt down for 8 minutes and 26 seconds. So there's actually a lot of amazing moments, a lot of photos I took during this protest, but this one really stood out to me because for one, this child in the foreground. And I just think about, historically, the moment that they're living through and experiencing, in real time is how is this going to shape them? How's this going to change them? How's this going to, influence the way they, when they come of age, how are they going to interact with that crisis, that comes in their time, So that was just something, but then also, this woman kind of met the eyes of the camera just as I was bringing the camera lens up, and I love that confrontation, with the viewer. So when the viewer comes and sees the photo, it speaks directly to them. It's not passive. It's right in your face, and yeah, it's just a kind of an awesome moment. And one thing that I like to do, as you guys might notice, is I like to use the imagery that from my photos and then transfer it to other mediums. So as you notice, this same woman is actually the woman right here on this cup, and this piece right here, it's a set of pictures in cups that I named Fill Our Cup, and it features George Floyd and Breonna Taylor on the pictures, and then I had protesters that I took pictures of at different protests throughout the summer, featured on all of the mugs here. And the idea behind the piece was that the victims of gun violence, they were kind of their spirits are kind of pouring into the community, and keeping us going, because there's all these moments when it was middle of summer. It was 97 degrees out and we've been walking for hours, and there's some people that would even pass out of just heat exhaustion and stuff like that. So it's just, but people never went home. They just kept going throughout the whole summer. It was such an intense feeling, and it's just how these people their lives really sparked this movement that happened. So I wanted to speak to that with this piece. And then also the idea that, in ancient cultures, there's this idea of putting these heroes or kings or queens or gods on their pottery, and they tell a narrative through that. And so it's also speaking to that as well. Like this type of work, was really kind of like the last kind of work I've made like this in like a really long time. Up in like between the years of like 2015 and 18, like my work really looked like this a lot. It was a lot of like wheel throwing. I like just really started on the wheel as an artist, and I've been working with clay for like 15 years, and it wasn't until the last since like 2021 when my work like really shifted. And so that work is what we're going to see throughout the rest of the show. So in January 2020, I was still an MFA student at Tyler School of Art and Architecture. And I just graduated in December, this past December. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I was taking my first photography class, January 2020, and then March 2020 hits, and everything shuts down, including my only access to a ceramic studio. So I really had to just turn to photography. So I would go around my neighborhood, basically just get out of the house and like not go crazy inside. And I would just like go out all the time, almost every day, and just take photos around the neighborhood. And then when the protest started, that's just what I've been doing. I've been bringing my camera everywhere. So I brought my camera to the protest, and so these photos that we're going to see were taken during that first week of protest in 2020. And then I guess I'll also mention that these are 6 of the 7 photos that made it to the June 22nd edition of the New Yorker. I think it's 22nd. And yeah, that was like a huge moment for me as an artist. It really like changed my art career in a big way. And it was also just a profound moment in my life, period. Just following these protests through the summer and fall, and it changed me in a lot of ways. As a person, as an artist. So that's what we're going to see throughout the rest of the exhibit. So this photo was taken that first week on June 4th, and this was another moment of silence for like 8 minutes and 26 seconds in honor of George Floyd. And this was taken on the steps of the PMA. And it was great because, we had been marching like all day. So it was like after like 3-4 hours of marching. And we get there, and there's the yelling, the screaming, there's the traffic and everything. And then it's just like this 8 minutes, 26 seconds of silence. And the sun's beating down on you, and people are uncomfortable on the concrete, and it really sinks in how long that time really is, And it didn't take long for just tears be coming down people's faces and stuff, and I thought it was just like a really powerful moment. And then you also see all the different people that were there. I think that really sunk in as a really human moment where it's not just a storyline. You can like physically feel that, and then you're imagining someone on the top of your neck. On top of all the other, how uncomfortable you are. So that was a really powerful moment. And then right here, this was like one of the coolest moments I experienced. You have all these moments that are like really heavy and sometimes scary, sometimes dangerous. When you're in these protests. But this is one of those moments of like just like joy and like. It's just like amazing to see. And there was like a giant protest on June 6th, and it was like 100,000 people that came out. And it was definitely the biggest protest, one of the biggest protests in the country, definitely the biggest protest we've had here in Philadelphia. And at the very end of the protest, people had circled back. It started at the PMA, people circled back to the PMA, and there was a group of breakdancers, a cipher going on, it was like a circle of breakdancers. And so all these guys in the back here are like professional breakdancers. So they'll like go to competitions over in Europe and stuff. So they were doing incredible stuff. They're like, flipping through the air and like spinning on their head and doing all this crazy stuff. But then the kids joined in. So this is like one of the daughters of the breakdancers that were here. And they were also just like crazy. Like, they were so incredibly talented and gifted. And I think it's just one of those moments that really like spoke to me. And then not only like, the story behind it, but then like just like how cool it looks, like the shadow, on the ground reflecting on the back of her, and the movement, her focus, she's like so focused and honed in on what she's doing. And then you have, I think this actually might be her dad, is holding his fist in the background, and it kind of gives you context to that moment in time. Yeah, it was a beautiful moment, and something we can celebrate each other, So this photo right here was also, this is the same protest, this is the same one, June 6th, and this is the beginning of the protest. And right here I'm actually standing, like right where Rocky's standing, when he's like running up the stairs and stuff. And this is just like, again, it was such a powerful day. And you can see how the crowd actually reaches all the way back to City Hall. And it was like overwhelming just seeing that many people out. And it was kind of funny, like when I got here, I like walked up from like this section over here, and I like meandered my way all the way through this crowd and kind of just like walked up here and then behind the stage and took the photo. But it's cool to see like something like this where this many people really came out to help out and speak out for what they believe in, And then talking to you about the ceramic pieces there in between them. So as you can see, my work changed drastically from that piece I made and into these works. So coming out of the protest in 2020, when I finally got back in the ceramic studio, I felt like, I was going through a hard time, I think, emotionally, just trying to process what had just happened. In a lot of ways, it felt like not much had gotten done, with like a ton of effort from a lot of people, and I just needed a way to compartmentalize, or not compartmentalize, but to work through, I guess, what I was going through at the time. And the clay definitely helped me do that. And I really wanted to work with the clay in a way that spoke to the tension I felt in my body. I had been tear gassed during the protest. I had spent a lot of time marching past policemen, or marching past young soldiers with rifles sitting next to like giant Humvees. That's like that type of stuff is like it grows on you and it collects on you. And so I wanted to reflect that tension that I was feeling in the work. And I couldn't do that in a way that was like on the potter's wheel. I was just making all these like nice clean forms, and everything was like very nice and stuff like that. And I really needed to make something that was kind of like true to the moment, what I was feeling. And so going deeper into that, that's when I really started making this like Riot series that is speaking more specifically to the protests. And so sometimes I make these like these signs, my own protest signs that are coming out of the pieces, and I'll put like eyes on them, and I want them to be like confrontational to the viewer. But I also wanted to, I guess before I go to that, I'll speak more about this. So a lot of this stuff, what I experienced when I was out in the protests, was often things got really crazy out there. And you might see In Philadelphia, especially like in North Philadelphia where I live, certain parts of West Philly, the crumbling infrastructure, particularly in Black and brown communities. And you might see heavy police presence. You might hear or have experienced gun violence, in those areas. And I think a lot about how these things collect on us. When you grow up in this environment, when you live in this environment, how does that grow on you? How do you carry that with you? And then even if you make it out of those environments, how's that still, how do you mend yourself? How do you cover yourself? How do you keep become a full person, despite of certain things in your environment, elements in your environment. And so I was really thinking about how during some of these protests, those very same elements is what actually became weapons, against, to speak out about, what you were living through. So the crumbling infrastructure, there's just rubble, rocks, cracked pavement. Those things were literally ripped up or picked up and thrown through windows and stuff like that. And so they became tools to speak out. And if their situation was better, they didn't have just rubble laying around the street. There'd be nothing to pick up. You know what I'm saying? So I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about what would it be like to have a vessel that is literally containing those elements. So it's as if you walked through the streets and picked up the broken glass, you picked up the rubble, you picked up the bricks off the ground, and you stuck them right into the vessel. Just to represent how these things, I'm carrying this and what I'm and how I'm dealing with it. And then this series is in the same vein, but it's really more speaking directly to my experiences in North Philly, the neighborhood I live in Strawberry Mansion. And it's called accretion, which is basically the opposite of erosion. So again, it's just that accumulation when something builds up on you, And I really think about dealing with the realities of that environment and dealing with the realities of people to carry with them. But also, I wanted to make a beautiful object. I wanted to make something that people were attracted to, that maybe even wanted to interact with and hold, and feel those textures and enjoy the vibrancy of the colors. And it's because, that's how I feel about the people who live in these communities, It's still, people go to the park and they're smiling and happy, and you see kids, 100 kids ride by on, motorcycles or mountain bikes doing wheelies and stuff, and it's just people find joy, It's that human ability to be resilient in spite of your environment and find your community, find your place in the world, and be able to mend yourself and heal yourself and make yourself into this beautiful whole person, despite of. So I really want to talk about these elements of infrastructure. Sometimes they have these bars, these the symbols of separation or incarceration, or something that be on the windows of people's houses or in shops, talk about those separations in the community. But I think one of the cool things about these, when I use these bars, is I put the bars in when the clay is wet, but the clay shrinks through the process of drying out or through in the kiln. And when the clay shrinks, it bends the bars and warps them and pulls them open, So it's kind of the breaking down of these barriers as well. So they get these elements of infrastructure, elements of resilience, inside the same piece, So that's basically what I'm thinking about with all these different works. And then even one other element too is that I really enjoy is, I guess I'll talk about that later because there's some pieces that are coming up. I'll talk about that. So this mural was so much fun to put together, and the crew here are absolutely amazing. Chelsea is so amazing. And this was put in so fast. I designed what it's gonna look like, and then the crew came in and painted all of the red and the black circle and the yellow right here. And I basically just focused my time here painting the figure in the middle. And it was this like really cool effort that happened so quickly. It was like in like 3 days, just appeared on the wall. So it was really exciting. But the idea, behind this mural, I should say the story is, I went to this really amazing protest on the 4th of July, and it was organized by the Black Trans Assembly, I believe, in Philly. And so it was the organizers were all Black trans activists in Philadelphia. And this is one of the organizers speaking outside the Liberty Bell. And which I thought was super dope about this moment was like there's all these families enjoying their day at like Liberty Hall, and like there's like this military flyover, and they're just trying to have like a normal 4th of July outing, and then like here comes this march. And they got like loudspeakers on this truck, and we were dancing and like listening to music, and then they're out here just basically speaking truth to power on what better way to disrupt than on a holiday when everybody was trying to just like not think about it, and yeah, it was an incredible experience. There's a bunch of protests this day, but I think this was like one of the most moving for me that day, and this was like I think the coolest. It was one of the best like pictures that I took. And what I really loved was like the pose. That's just like this powerful pose, but the shirt, man. The shirt is like something that I was just like I don't know, I lost it like seeing the shirt. I was like, man, this is like such a like sick idea, to claim, and recognize where we are and what role we have to play in this whole thing, and one of the reasons why I went out and took the photos in the first place and followed the protest was because I knew it had to be documented, because I recognized it was a moment in history, and I think it's the most important that we as or whoever is like the protest is about, like you should be documenting that yourself. We as Black people, as Black artists, have a role to play in, making sure these stories, live on, and recognizing that like you take an American history class, and the people, the stuff that you read about in your history book on the Civil War was just like some woman who wrote in her diary on whatever day and say this is what happened, It's like, and then now she's like in the museum or a history book or whatever. It's like recognize our own, ability to be a part of that story, the narrative that's being portrayed. Because Lord knows CNN and Fox News, have their own agendas. The politicians have their own agendas. Even the people who write history books have their own agendas. So it's like, what is my agenda? Like what do I want to get across? And what is essential for me to come out of what I experienced in like that summer. So I just think it's like, and it's like something that everybody should be aware of. Not just Black people or minorities or whoever. It's like everybody should be aware of their own autonomy and ability to, have a say in how their story is told. So yeah, I just love that, taking complete ownership of that. And so, that's a saying I started like using a lot on my protest signs. And again, these are more of the riot series. And this one includes bullets that I made out of clay, and just speaking to the violence that brought us to this situation. The bars again can be referenced to the carceral system or things that separate us. There's more bullets in this one as well. Yeah. So that's that. This one is like one of my favorite photos, and this was on the first day of protests, May 30th, following George Floyd's death, and it was a wild day, and we'll see the rest of the photos, but this was this is at Logan Square. If you guys know where that is, it's that big fountain. And I just like climbed up, and I'm standing like on the fountain wall or somewhere, maybe inside the fountain. I don't remember exactly where I was standing. But it just had this crazy shot of City Hall and all these people leading up to it. And at the time, I took a lot of shots of the backs of people's heads that day. And the reason why is because a lot of people were really concerned with having their face on social media, and then police using that to arrest them. Or some, maybe a Proud Boy wants to seek retribution, like they recognize somebody or something like that. So there's a huge concern about that. So I was, as someone who wanted to go and document what's happening, I was really trying to just take the backs of people's heads, and if I did take some of the shot of people's faces, I didn't really post it for a long time, until we got into later in the protest. And then I realized the police were there with cameras and video cameras every day, taking pictures of everybody. So it's like, you were there, your face is in a folder somewhere, so. And I would like talk to those dudes. I took pictures of them. They take pictures of me, and yeah, it is what it is, But yeah, so there's an intention behind where I was standing and how I took this photo. But I just think it's also kind of like everybody marching towards City Hall like this, and that was just it was a cool moment. And this is my friend Christina waiting for me to finish taking the photo. Shout out to Christina. So I took that photo, we marched down to City Hall, around City Hall, and then back up North Broad. And the police made like a barricade at Broad and Vine and wouldn't let anybody march further. And I think it's maybe because they didn't want people marching onto the highway, but I'm not really sure. But yeah, so they had this barricade set up, and that's when actually things kind of went left, And you had this cop car that was set on fire during that time, and on the other end of the same intersection, there was these riot police that showed up, and they were back here, stretching, warming up, and they got their swinging arms. They're literally doing stuff like this, just warming up, getting ready. And then they had all these lines of bike police. And they're going through around three parts of the intersection. And these guys start charging at the crowd, and the bike police open up, and these guys are just going to charge straight into where I was standing. And I started hearing people yell "white bodies to the front," and all these little white girls locked arms and jumped in front of us and locked arms, and it stopped these dudes in their tracks. And I just think it just goes to show, the awareness of these guys knowing what beating the crap out of these white chicks would have done, That would not play well on CNN or in the local newspaper. And it was a crazy moment. And then I ran back up and I started taking photos of, but man, and you can kind of see this dude right here in particular, he was ready for action. He was almost couldn't help himself. But yeah, that was a wild moment. But then this day was like, this is June 1st, and this is the day we actually did march out into the highway. And on that day, we were immediately, as soon as we got on the highway, we were immediately surrounded by police in like armored vehicles. And they started shooting without warning. You know, supposed to give you like, I guess, 3 warnings, you know. They just started macing people, shooting people rubber bullets, shooting tear gas into the crowd. And I got tear gassed, but then I got off the highway immediately. And I, like, when I was coming up the embankment, because I started feeling it. You start feeling it first. And then, like, as I was coming up the embankment, there was a canister that hit like right here, like next to me, like as I was like crawling up this like grassy like hill thing. And immediately I'm like breathing hard. I'm wearing a mask and I'm all sweaty, and it's like I immediately start breathing like huge lungfuls of tear gas, and I start coughing, and because I'm wearing a mask, it shoots right up into my eyes. So I'm just like, my face is on fire. I can't see. I'm kind of just like feeling my way through the crowd. A guy runs over and like just throws milk in my face. And I just take a second to compose myself. And when I like look up, I'm seeing all these people crowded around this fence. And as I get closer, I'm just hearing all the screams and everything. And I realize there's a big group of people behind this fence that have been trapped against a wall on the highway. And you can see the tear gas right here in the background. The cops are just still shooting straight into the crowd, rubber bullets, you know, tear gas, they're macing people, and they're just slowly just like detaining people. And these, I mean, and the people are just like screaming, and there's just to like give you an idea what's happening on the other side of this fence. There's like a concrete wall that's like this high. And then there's this metal slated like wall that's like another 8 feet high. So like just to get up to like the point where you can get over this wall, like people are like literally pushing themselves like over the top of each other. They're like trying to push people up, and then people on the other side trying to catch them and try to help them through the fence. And it's just chaos. It's just insane. I took, you know, a couple photos, and as soon as I basically got there, we had been tear gassed. They dropped tear gas on this side of the fence, then we just ran. And I just like, leave them there. And that was an insane day. Yeah.
Did you have to get over the fence yourself, or were you?
No, luckily, like where I was like towards the back of the protest, and these guys were all in the front. So the people who like went under the underpass, they're the ones that there was like just walls on both sides of the highway. Where I was near the exit, and there was just like a regular fence that I could just walk up by. Yeah. So yeah, it's craziness. So this is a really exciting part of the show. So just talking about the bust first. So the idea behind this is basically I wanted to take the idea of, you know, how your environment's collecting on you. And I've been really working in a way that was a little bit more abstract. And I kind of wanted to make, you know, a bust that was speaking to in a more direct sense, you know. And I think when you talk about, you know, like an abstract figure being a body or a reference to a body or something like that, like you can get it. But like this, you know, you don't really have to use your imagination too hard to, you know, think about something accumulating on you, you know, with a piece like this. Yeah, and it kind of speaks to like a memorial, or something that is like a monument to, you know, the people who live in these communities. Like specifically, like where I'm at, like Strawberry Mansion and things like that. But then again, it speaks back to these vibrant colors. It speaks back to the energy in the community, the resilience and stuff. And yeah, it just something I really enjoyed making. In these columns that are on either side, again, reinstates the idea of the architecture and the environment, and it echoes that how we're carrying these our environment with us. But it also kind of speaks to like the reality of the situation, and it speaks to more of like this resilient side. And I really love like the bike culture. People I know get really annoyed with those crazy kids out there on their bikes. But there's such a sense of freedom in that, and I think when we think about how many people have a lack of opportunities to express themselves, or feel that sense of freedom and autonomy and power over their own life and abilities. It's like there's some really talented people out there do crazy tricks on bikes and they have a really good time, and they found a community where they can express themselves. And I just think those are just like these like moments of sunshine, like just ripping through an intersection when I find it, it's crazy what they do. It's like they're like daredevils, it's like, wow, I wish I had the balls to like do something like that, but I wanted to kind of like make a monument to that, in how it's like inspiring and brings joy to my life for sure. Yeah, so that's this like whole area in here is just kind of a monument to the community that inspires me, so that's what I'll say about that. Yeah, absolutely.
So this bus, did you make the whole bus and then add it?
Mm-hmm.
Or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's like actually a mold of this head. So I made like a giant head, and then I took like a mold of that form, and then now the head's almost like a canvas that I can like work with. So when I bring it out of the mold, it's the basic form, the face, and then I have to like add ears, the hair, and any of this stuff is all in secondary. Yeah. So yeah, it's a lot of processes, a lot of different processes going on.
Very striking.
Yeah, thank you.
Where are you firing this? These are huge pieces. Where are you doing
So what's interesting about these is like there are 3 different sections. So I made these 3 different sections and epoxied them together, and I spray painted the whole thing. And I've also sprayed on this color too, but this is actually glaze that is fired in the kiln. And this is just cold finish. This is just regular spray paint on top of these. And I have to define different places to fire because like I'm in a residency right now, but I'm not like don't really access to a kiln there, but I can make things yet. Working on getting electrical set up for that. So I just kind of been like finding kilns around town to fire them in various places. So it's kind of just like a challenge, but like what's crazy is like, I don't know if you guys ever worked with clay, but like taking something across town that's this big and it's bone dry, not fun. It is a very touchy situation, but you gotta get shit done sometimes.
And the use of spray paint to use it in so much of your work, is that also like an homage to the community?
Yeah,
What's
like
the choices there?
like you see these like crowns in here and stuff, I really want to reference the graffiti that's covering the city. And Philly is also, it's where graffiti started. And it blew up when it got to New York because they put it on all the trains and everything. But it started here, and so I think it's like a Philadelphia art form, and you think about like also like mural arts, that came out of the Anti-Graffiti Network, So the Anti-Graffiti Network was something that Wilson Goode ran on, who was a mayor back in the day, and one of his like big things that he ran on was like cleaning up the city, and like so to this day we spend $1 million a year just painting over graffiti. And you can think about how well that works because of the city's covering graffiti. So things like Mural Arts program came out of that. Because initially they're just arresting kids and making them paint over their own work, and then mural arts came around and it changed a little bit. So they got sentenced to painting murals instead of, painting graffiti, painting over their own work necessarily, or like painting over their graffiti with murals. So it's evolved over the years, and recently I've worked with Mural Arts on a different mural in town, and that's on 33rd and Diamond. And I would love to do more. Murals. They're a lot of fun to make. But yeah, I wanted to think about making things that were very specific to Philly. So there's the graffiti elements, the architectural elements, and specifically the bricks here too. Philly's also the capital of brick making from its inception basically till the 90s. And it's a ceramic object, so, and it's architectural, and so it worked. Yeah. And I think it just speaks to something that's just like, they're just discarded objects that are just laying around, that, part of the idea of this is kind of like the idea of like taking this, the pieces of this environment and building something beautiful out of it, so it's that kind of reclamation of your environment and taking ownership of it is definitely a big theme in the work. And I don't know if you guys noticed too, but like, this is all like tire. These are all different kind of tire marks, like tread marks and stuff. But that was a fun process. And then these are like bike chains and gears and stuff.
When their mind is burning and they want to start.
Yeah, I was really curious about your choice of colors. Like, with the ceramic pieces, I know for the Fill My Cup, the colors you used there were also starkly different from the Ryan series.
Yeah.
So, like, I was just kind of curious what your exploration was around, like, those color choices.
They kind of come from like two different things. Like these are like a lot more fiery. Like there's a lot of energy to them. But then I also have ones that are kind of that green, and it reminds me of like my time like walking out on the train tracks and just seeing like graffiti, like old graffiti on the wall, and like the walls like all dirty and like covered in like moss or something. And it's kind of that interaction of like, I guess because I'm really close to the park, it's like there's that interaction between like these old abandoned sculptures that are in the park and the graffiti that's there, and then I don't know, there's something about that kind of speaks to me about that. And this is definitely more fiery, like reminds me of the protest, reminds me of like just that energy, in the city. But more than anything, I just want color combinations that look really good. I think that's like my very first instinct is to find color combinations that work, and then going from there, I feel like sometimes I just start doing something and then it builds its meaning, like after the fact. And sometimes I'm like, I know it feels right, but I don't know exactly why it feels right. And but then the meaning comes later sometimes. So it wasn't like I sat here and painted these like these are gonna be fiery, these are gonna be like this, that. It's like it makes sense that it has like this like yellows and oranges and reds, like really like hot colors, like, and then next I'm sure why, but then it feels right. So yeah.
Going off of that color question, why did you choose black and white for the photographs?
So yeah, so I took these all on a digital camera, and they all have color. They were taken in color. I took the photos when they were in color, and then I edited them to be black and white. Initially, it was just a practical decision because I had thousands of photos. I was just taking so many photos every day, and editing them in color is a lot harder than editing black and white photos. Because you're just dealing with contrast, you're not dealing with color correction and like all these other things. And I'm still pretty new to photos, so it was mostly a practical decision. But then conceptually they're tie into old civil rights photos of Malcolm X or Martin Luther King. And it carries that history, that weight of that history with it as well. I guess we're just like used to in this country, like seeing kind of like protest photos, in black and white. So it's just, I guess, one of those things that. But later on, I started using a lot more in color, but I didn't use those for those shows.
You mentioned that some of the photos were published in the New Yorker. Could you say some more about that?
Yeah, it was kind of wild. I just started, basically what had been doing up to that point is I started a photo Instagram, and that's just where I was posting all my work. Like I wasn't, my intention wasn't to be like a photographer. It was just like, I need to do something creatively, like mostly keep myself sane, and like while we're in this pandemic, and the only thing I can do is like go for walks, outside. So I wanted to just like keep the creative juices going. So that's what I was doing. And the New York. So then I took photos of the protest, and I was putting them on my Instagram, and they just hit me up one day. Like it was just the director of photography just DM'd me actually on Instagram. And it was like 8:30 in the morning, and I wake up and I was like, what is that? That's not real. So I didn't think it was, I thought it was like a phishing thing. Yeah, spam or whatever. And then I looked it up, and it was real. By that time, she had emailed me and texted me. She was like, found my phone number. So okay. And then she's like, we love your photos, we love to use them. Can you get on a call this morning? So I had like a Zoom call with them like an hour later. And that was like a Tuesday, and the following Monday it was in print.
Wow.
So it was like a crazy quick overnight, and it was just like me just sending them all the photos that I had, just like thousands of photos, maybe I wrote it down to a selection of the ones I had edited and the ones I liked the most. So I sent them that, and then they sent me back like, hey, do you have more like this, or do you do that? And then I sent them another group of photos, and then they're like, okay, we're gonna like send these photos back, and then there was like a final selection out of those. So it was like each day it was kind of like going back and forth throughout the day, the photo selection. And then I got interviewed by David Remnick, and he wrote the article that the pieces were in, and they ended up being 7-page full spread. So each one of these photos was like 2 pages, the full spread of the New Yorker, like right in the middle. And it was insane because I thought there was gonna be like little photos with captions like in the corner of an article or something. And I was like, okay, they're gonna use it, but it's gonna be like a little thing. And then they sent me the design. Like, we're really excited. We're sending you over the design like right now. And it was like on a Saturday. They were like the final edition before it got printed like the next day. And when they sent me over the design, I was like, cool. I was like, what the fuck? I was like freaking out because I had no idea what their like the intentions of like how they're putting together the article was. Because they had interviewed me and all this stuff, and then it came out, and I was like, this is absolutely insane. And then later in the year, I actually won Feature Photographer of the Year from the National Magazine Editors Awards. So crazy.
Remember when it was published in the New York Times?
It was like June 22nd edition, I believe.
Of 2020?
Of 2020. Yeah. So it was like very quick. Like it was like this is May 30th.
Wow.
And then like that first week of June is when all these photos were taken. And by the 22nd, it was like incredible. Like it happened so quick. It was nuts. Yeah.
I guess on that note, do you want to continue to do more documentary style photography in the future? Hopefully this doesn't have to happen again, but in the future, obviously this stuff is going to keep happening. So
Yeah.
is that something that you're still interested in working with, that medium?
I mean, kind of. I did like a few more things. I followed the protests throughout the summer, and then I got hired to do a few things, take photos and stuff for people. But it dried up real quick because there was other magazines like Times Magazine wanted to work with me, People Magazine, and they all fell through. And it was really weird because I was going to cover the election for the Times, and they were really excited to work with me and all stuff. And then it got like a week before the election, and like, oh, I just talked to my editor, and they said we can't work with you because you're an activist. So it was like I couldn't be like an objective journalist or something. So I haven't been hired by anybody since then. And I had definitely had a lot of people talk to me about stuff, but it just never panned out. And then I haven't really worked for another like a magazine since then, or a newspaper or whatever. I'm not exactly like against doing that kind of work, but I certainly don't want to be like a conflict photographer. The people at the New Yorker were like, we need more like people of color doing conflict photography. I'm like, pass. I'm not gonna get shot for no. This was like something that was very personal to me. So this is like, I consider myself part of the protest. Like this is my role. I can keep these images alive. I can like put these people who are risking a lot, like the organizers who really are risking a lot, put them on this pedestal where they belong, and like carry these stories forward into the future, and that's how I feel like I can, the best way I can contribute, I guess, where my talents are. But doing that in another country, like going to like Russia or like Ukraine, like I took pictures out here like all summer with a guy who's now in Ukraine, like really doing it, like seeing bodies and shit, and like hearing mortar fire around him and stuff. Like, that's not me. He's built different.
So to that question, I was curious, because we're kind of like catching you in a moment, but I was curious what the focus of your work was before 2020, and then also just where you see the focus of your work moving forward.
Yeah. Well, I would like to do more photography. I did some more like artistic like stuff. That wasn't like documentative. It was like just conceptual like kind of work that was in my thesis show last year. And that was really exciting because I was really, working directly with people who I hired as models and stuff like that, and which is totally different than working just with what's given to you. You just like protest, you're running around and lights coming from all these different directions, and people are moving, and it's like hard to do that, but then it's a completely different struggle to stage something and have it turn out nice. So anyway, I don't know why I said all that, but I really love doing photography. I think I would like to do more of both street photography and more really building a scene and stuff like that. And then I want to for sure keep on doing ceramics because I've been doing it for so long, and that's just what I love, so I'm good at. But I would love to branch out to other things. I'd see myself doing clothing or films or a lot of different stuff. But just kind of just going with whatever I have access to. I'm really getting to a place where I'm more interested in finishing an idea in whatever medium it needs to be in, than just only want to work with one medium. Sometimes I'm really open to branching out, but ceramics they have most access to right now, and photography obviously. Yeah.
I wanted to know more about your process with your ceramics, one when you concept to the finished design, but then also just daily when you go to start working, how do you get your mind right, or make sure that you're feeling those feelings that you're trying to portray?
Yeah, great question. I listen to a lot of music, and I listen to a lot of hip hop. I listen to all different kinds of stuff, and I think that type of stuff is what really brings certain emotions out of me and stuff like that. And sometimes sometimes I go in the studio, I'm making stuff, and I'm not really feeling it, but I just know I gotta make something. And there's a few different reasons. Sometimes I haven't been making in a while, and just making something just makes me feel better. And sometimes I'm completely in the zone and feeling inspired, and I feel dang, I'm making such good shit right now. I'm killing it. So there's a wide range of emotions going through the process, and but I really am. I think one thing that I found out in grad school, or the biggest challenge I found in grad school, is remaining confident in that feeling. You're in the studio, you're making the work, and you're so confident with the decisions that you're making. And then it's that moment when you put it out in front of people for them to judge it. Then it's you start to lose that confidence. But that confidence comes from a real place, It really does make sense, and sometimes maybe you don't have the words exactly to describe what that is, but I think it's just something that's specifically something that I'm trying. I always am aiming at when I go in the studio. It's just being honest with myself. If it's not good, then I'm gonna start over. Just grab it. If it's good, and I like it, I'm gonna move forward with it. And a lot of times, if it's not there yet, I'm gonna keep going until it does work. So, when I'm in the studio, that's just basically what it is. And what's really exciting about working with the clay like this is, I'm really just working very quickly, physically with the clay, and I'm reacting to it as it's being created. So it's a very organic process that it's as I put things on it changes shape, it changes form. I stretch it, I break it, I put it back together. So it's it's changing a lot through the process. Whereas like when you're throwing the wheel, it's like cylinder. You know, it's like I know like what's going on. I know I can I'm definitely good enough to like have that shape in my head, or have an idea in my head, or like draw it out and then make it like basically exactly that. And with this, I could never really know exactly what's on the other side. I think that's why I'm so much more excited about working with clay like this right now, because there's that challenge to make it good when I don't know what's coming. You know, whereas with just throwing just pots on the wheel, it's like I know what's coming, pretty much. So it keeps it exciting, I'm sure.
I mean, the exhibit is amazing, and like, but hearing you talk it through is like a different level, and it feels like a body of work, you know. And I'm like, if you were going to go back and spend a couple minutes sort of like looking at one piece, like which would you choose?
I'm not really sure. I don't really know. There's a lot I like about like different things. So it's like when I look at all the photos, it brings me back to those moments and a lot of different memories. And I get really excited about just, I don't know, something like this photo right here. Like I just love the way that photo looks. Like it's so crazy. And it brings me back to that moment and how powerful that moment was. But I don't know, because a lot of times when I see like the ceramic pieces and stuff, like I think about the whole evolution of the different pieces that got me to that point. And so it's not just about like maybe that one piece, but I think I have like I don't really know. I mean, the bust is like the most exciting thing to me right now because that's like the most recent piece I made. So like that's what's most exciting to me right now is like how do I push into that place of making figurative stuff, and it's something that's very direct. It's something that anybody can. When I think about like art, I think a lot about how like where is the audience like in, like where is like their way, where is their access point to the work. So it's like a lot of times in like art school and shit, like we have people making all these like crazy abstract things, like really weird out there things, and it comes from like a lot of research and a lot of like rigorous, like work that's behind it. But if you're just a person just walking down the street and you walk up to them, you're like, what the hell is that? like what is that? It just looks like a pile of trash in the corner. But all of it comes from a very conceptual, place. Whereas like, I really like the stuff that people, like, I think there's a lot of different access points. And like, I think, figurative work is just a huge access point because literally everybody knows what a face looks like, So that's an in for anybody, And then you're like, okay, why is it covered in like all this stuff, And then oh, like that's interesting. Oh, let me read the actual writing on the wall because now I want to know more. It's like I feel like that's the order it should be in. It's like you have to read all the words on the wall for anything to make sense in the room. Then it's like sometimes that can bring me out of it. I mean, not always. There's definitely a lot of interesting stuff out there I can appreciate. But for me, what I personally want to do is I want stuff that's compelling and brings people then into the concepts. Like then I can get my ideas across. Like if I'm not making beautiful objects that people are interested in and want to know more about, then it's like I don't get that opportunity to do this, where I'm like talking about the actual concepts, the ideas about what I'm actually concerned about. So I think that's what's like I forget what the first bit of the beginning of your question was.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, but that's like what I'm interested in is having a lot of access points. We can like learn more and more and more, and there's layers to the meanings behind in the work.
Because you were talking a little bit about your process before and how like you were using a wheel to make some of these, but I guess like I have, it's like a two-part question. It's like first, I guess, when you were like doing the process on the wheel, were you applying it like wet, like and building it little by little to the shape that you were, I guess, getting to? Because you were saying that you weren't really sure. Was that?
So the only pieces made on the wheel were the ones out there.
Okay.
So they're like, very clean forms, like really nice, like straight walls and that sort of thing. And then I can use that as a canvas to put all designs on top of that. Is like how I used to, where I was working with clay, like basically exclusively is like what I was doing. And then this work, I needed to communicate in a different way. Like I wanted those rough edges, those sharp corners. And initially I was calling them like right cups. I was making all these like cup forms. And they weren't usable because there's all these holes and tears and there's a very jagged edge. But I wanted that feeling, that association to the body. Whereas like if I pick this up and there's all these like sharp corners coming out of it, and I try to drink out of it, what is that experience like? Just imagining putting this thing to your face it gives you a little tension. So and I was like, I have so much tension in my body right now. Like I am just like on edge, and so I was like, I need to communicate that, So I started, and I was like, I wasn't sure how because I wasn't comfortable making stuff like this. That's really rough and like aggressive and physical and like not uniform, not like perfectly symmetrical. It's like. So it was a struggle to get to that point, but I knew it was right when I finally got to that point. And what had happened was I really just started using just a giant lump of clay. So I just used one giant lump of clay, and I would stick a dowel into the center of it, and I would work it out from the inside. And that's this will get all these natural like stretching, and I would put all these different marks on the outside. So like the bricks that you see is just like lines that I like slice into the clay, and then when it stretches and opens up, then it looks like bricks. It looks like more like a brick wall, but it has this movement to it that a brick wall would normally have. So the stretching of the clay creates a lot of the textures and the forms, and and there's like a slicing, and then I have these like impacts like this, where I'm actually like I put like a chunk of clay behind this, and then I work it out from the, I don't know how to explain it very well, but like I work it out so it looks like an impact, like a bullet head, like wound or something. And then I'll make certain objects that I'll attach. So those bullets are something that I'm like hand make all of them, and then attach them, or the signs and something I attach later. A lot of this stuff is already fired clay, or maybe pieces of other pieces that I've already made that I smash up and then stick into the clay. So it's like there's a lot.
So it sounds
going
like
on.
you were doing a lot of like hand molding, like that. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's all like handmade and like it happens real fast. And then like some of this even has like real screws in it that like go through the kiln. And then that wire that's in the clay is like nichrome wire that can be fired really high temperatures and stuff like that. It's actually what they use to make the kiln elements, stuff like that. So
Cool.
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
When you create pieces, when you design and create pieces like this, do you think about from whose perspective you are creating this piece? In other words, are you creating it from your perspective? Are you creating from the perspective of one of the people, who's in the middle of it?
Yeah.
From a cop's point of view,
Yeah.
do you think about those questions?
Yeah, I do. I can't quite, like, I feel like I'm like hesitant to say like I'm speaking for someone, like speaking for a community, but I can give you my honest, like, reflection of what I'm experiencing in the community. So it's like, I don't want to speak for, like, it's like, the other room is, like I said, it was kind of like a monument to, like, my environment, like, the community that I live in. It's not like I'm speaking for them, like, this is what they want, or how they want to be portrayed, like, I would never claim them. But it's my way of saying, like, honoring that. In the same way, me is like, I do kind of see them as like a possible, person coming into the community. Like, the different things we have attached to us. Like, each person's bringing their own set of, baggage to this environment where they've been affected in some way and they want to speak out. Whether it was just that incident of watching the video of George Floyd, or a personal encounter with police that they've had. It's like, there's, I talked to this guy that's like a welder. I was trying to get this like big sculpture done. And I was talking to this welder. I'm originally from Wisconsin, and I was going to do it in Milwaukee. And he's a white dude, but he's a welder for like the local like police and firefighters. But he had a brother who had been like murdered by police. So he also had this very personal like relationship with like wanting to work with like on the stuff that I was working with, and so it's like we all have this like different kind of baggage, where we're coming from. And he's like a white dude too. I don't know if I mentioned that. Okay, so it was really interesting and fascinating talking to him. But I just think about the different people who come to protest and the people who are in my community, and we each have our own type of baggage. So that even though each of these like pieces I could never replicate, it is an individual. But I would hesitate to say that this person matches up with this person, this one matches up with this person, not like that direct. But and then in some ways they're all me too. So they're reflective of things I'm thinking about or going through, or
Does the title of the show relate to your ceramics and your photography?
Yeah. Well, Chelsea helped me come up with the title of the show. Do you want to speak on what your thoughts on it?
Yeah. So I've known Isaac for a really long time. We met in 2018.
Yeah.
We met in a show that I curated, and Isaac made a really nice comment about the exhibition, and we became friends, and I've been admiring his work ever since then. So when we decided to have him come and show, and we were thinking about the work and looking at everything, I knew that I definitely wanted something with cracks in the title, just because of the literal cracks that are in the work, but also the cracks in the systems that we're talking about. Especially like, he's talked about it the whole time, but you're talking about, mass incarceration, you're talking about, just police brutality and all these broken systems that we're dealing with in the show. I felt like the word cracks needed to be in it. And then when I was thinking about it more, it's like thinking about how these systems and these cracks just keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And even like Isaac mentioned earlier, how hundreds of thousands of people protested and that there's still so much damage and not much was even repaired from that. So that's how I thought the title is just these cracks that continuously like deeply cracking, these systems just crumbling, and the intention's not being pure with any of them. So that's how I came up with the title. And then Isaac liked it, and then yeah.
I was like, that's dope. Yeah, it was. Basically going off what Chelsea said, just especially in like a moment when like the country's like so polarized, and just seems to only becoming more polarized over everything. It's like, cracks are deep. I mean, I think also my work is about mending those cracks, you know, and so there's like hope in it too, and that's what I really want to focus on. Like, and I don't think I could like make work that is like, you know, there's like that what's it called? I forget what the actual term is, but like some artwork is kind of just like conflict porn, or like it's just like terrible, shocking stuff because you want to like shock the audience into like doing something about it, about the issues, or like doing something that is just staying in that place. And I felt I was in that place all summer and into the fall, and then like experiencing again during the Chauvin trial, you know. And I can't sit in that place all the time. It's not a place that I can just sit in that place of like anger and mistrust and you know, you can't sit in there forever. And I can't make work that reflects that. Like I like the pieces. I could have these pieces like in my home and live with them, and that's what I want. Like I couldn't live with something that just reminded me of terrible things happening all the time, and that's it. You know, I think it's like it's good to like be real with what the reality of the situation is and not sugarcoat it, but also to still have something there that's you know, it's worthwhile, and it's like it's beautiful at the end of the day. You know, like that's at the end of the day, I really just want to make beautiful things. You know, like that is like the most important thing to me. And yeah, I couldn't. I wouldn't like the work if it was just only one-sided, and it was just like terrible shit. That's all it did, just remind me of terrible shit all the time, and I was just an angry artist just trying to, you know, I don't know, I couldn't do that.
If I could just make an observation.
Mm-hmm.
One of the takeaways that I take away is that what you've done is, I mean, it was smashing and breaking and cracks and crumbling, that you've assembled, you've taken those fragments and put them together.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that's constructive, redemptive,
Yeah.
repair
Yeah.
in some ways.
Yeah.
That's a message that
Yeah, and I think that's like spot on. I think it's like, well, how do we build something out of this rubble? Like, how do we build something out of like the pieces that are left over? You know, and that's like a personal journey. You know, we all get broken at some point, and we have to put the pieces back together. And as society, clearly broken. And how do we put that shit back together before it really falls apart, you know? And I think that's like a struggle, and like this work is like not necessarily like an answer, but it is like it's like an example of that. It's a metaphor for that, and it's stuff that I'm making while I'm like on my own journey of like that, you know, and yeah. So I think it's a great observation.
So this show will be open until September, but can you tell everybody any other shows you have coming up, really around, you know, the country or just in
Yeah. So I have a show, another show in Philadelphia at the Da Vinci, and that is July. It'll be just a photography show, and it's a two-person show with Ada Trio, and she followed the caravans that came up through Mexico in 2020. So like at the same time, like I was on the streets, she was like following these caravans, and I think there's some beautiful narratives, and we're going to build through that. We're finishing up the selection for the photos right now.
Is that a gallery of the Da Vinci?
Yeah.
the Chair of the Lions? It's actually really close to here, like a 10-minute walk away.
Yeah, it's like it's over on what street is that shit? It's right close. It's right near the Italian market. It's like 2 blocks away from Kentucky.
Is it Catherine? No.
I think
Yeah.
it is Catherine.
Yeah.
I think it's Catherine, yeah.
It's your Fletcher Art Memorial.
Yeah, the Brandon
Yeah,
Fletcher Art
that's
Memorial.
true, yeah.
It's that show's coming in July, so I'm really excited about that show. I'm gonna show it's like opening next week, this upcoming weekend in Saratoga, Saratoga Springs, New York.
Ooh.
And that's how we all ceramics. That's a group show. Then another show. Yeah, no more in Philly, but.
How long is the Saratoga Springs? I might be up there. How long is it up for?
That's gonna be up for like a month. It'll be like, it'll come down July 16th, I believe.
Share all the places.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And then,
People travel,
there's a
so-
show in Concord, Massachusetts at Lucy Lacoste Gallery. And that show goes up like mid-July as well. I forget how long it is. I don't have dates in my head. But they're all on my Instagram. They will be all on my Instagram. But y'all get my Instagram. That's where I share. If you want to keep up with what I'm doing next, that's where I share all my stuff.
What's your Instagram?
It's this_is_ceramics. And then my photography Instagram is this is photography 2020.
Run that backwards one more time.
Yeah. And I have a card too. But it's this. If you were to just type in "this is ceramics" on Instagram, it should come up. And then this is photography 2020. That's my photography one. I've been posting a lot more of my ceramics one because I've just been doing a lot more ceramics. But those, you can see a lot more of my photography work. When you go to my website, which is isaacspottery.com, you can see a lot more of my photos. And if I have like a sale, a lot of times I have sales, different sales on my website. I have stuff up for sale right now on my website. So yeah.
Are there any other questions? All right.